Behind him, the others started to quiet down. Noticing the fisherman's posture had subtly changed, he stood straighter now, his presence radiating a quiet authority that was impossible to ignore. Without saying a word, he reached for his jacket, slowly folding it and setting it aside. Every movement was precise, calculated, a far cry from the frail, passive man they'd assumed he was. The leader scoffed, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling. "You think you're tough, old man," he said, stepping forward. The fisherman didn't answer. Instead, he locked eyes with the leader, and in that moment, the air seemed to shift entirely. The bikers exchanged glances, their earlier bravado beginning to waver. They had no idea what was coming, but they were about to find out. As the leader stepped closer, the quiet tension in the air shifted again, this time more palpable than ever. The fisherman's calm demeanor wasn't just unsettling. It was starting to feel deliberate, as though he was waiting for the perfect moment. But before anything could happen, a sudden sharp sound broke the standoff. From the tree line behind them, the unmistakable growl of a high-performance engine roared to life. The bikers spun around, startled, as a sleek black motorcycle emerged from the shadows, its rider clad in understated but unmistakably tactical gear. The figure stopped just short of the group, dismounting with a casual ease that somehow carried the same quiet authority as the fisherman. "Everything all right here?" the rider asked, his voice calm but edged with steel. The leader faltered for a moment, but his pride kicked in. "This isn't your business," he snapped, though the confidence in his voice was clearly starting to crack. The fisherman finally spoke, his voice steady and firm. "Actually, I'd say it is." He glanced at the new arrival, exchanging a look that spoke volumes without a single word. The bikers exchanged uneasy glances, sensing they were now outnumbered, but there was something more to this. The connection between the two men wasn't random. It felt like they'd planned for something like this, like they'd seen trouble coming long before it arrived. The leader's bravado returned, though not as strong as before. "You think bringing a friend changes anything?" he sneered, trying to mask his uncertainty. But the fisherman didn't flinch. Instead, he smiled, a quiet, knowing smile that sent a chill down the bikers' spines. What they didn't realize was that they weren't just facing two men. They were facing two Navy SEALs, and the game they thought they were winning was about to take a drastic turn. The leader of the bikers squared his shoulders, trying to regain control of the situation. "Two against all of us? You've got guts. I'll give you that," he sneered. The other bikers laughed nervously, but their bravado was fading. Something about the silent confidence of the two men before them made it clear this wasn't an ordinary confrontation. The fisherman spoke, his voice calm yet commanding. "This is your chance to walk away. Leave now, and we forget this happened." The leader scoffed, but his hesitation was obvious. Before he could respond, the second man stepped forward, his movements smooth and deliberate, and held up a small badge. The emblem glinted in the fading light, a Navy SEAL insignia. The bikers froze. They had picked the wrong targets, and they knew it. Their leader tried to play it off, but his voice cracked. "What, you think we're scared of some old military guys?" he said, his grip tightening on the handle of his knife. Before anyone could blink, the fisherman moved. With speed and precision honed over decades, he disarmed the leader in one fluid motion, sending the knife clattering to the ground. The second man stepped in, positioning himself between the others and the fisherman, his posture a silent warning. The bikers stumbled back, their confidence shattered. Just when it seemed like the tension was over, the sound of distant sirens filled the air. The fisherman smiled faintly. "Didn't think I'd come out here without backup, did you?" he said. The bikers panicked, scrambling for their bikes as the police arrived, lights flashing. As they were rounded up, the fisherman retrieved his scattered fishing gear. The second man turned to him, grinning. "You always did have a way of luring trouble." The fisherman chuckled. just another day by the lake. As the police secured the bikers and began questioning them, the fisherman quietly returned to his spot by the water. His fishing rod, though knocked aside earlier, was still intact. He picked it up, checked the line, and cast it back into the lake with a calm, steady motion, as if nothing had happened. The second man leaned against his motorcycle, watching the scene unfold. "Think they'll learn their lesson?" he asked with a smirk. The sun was setting over the quiet lakeside, casting a golden glow on the rippling water. A lone fisherman sat patiently by the shore, his weathered hands steady on the rod as he waited for the next bite. He looked like any ordinary man enjoying a peaceful evening, but this wasn't just any fisherman. What no one could see was the years of discipline, skill, and unshakable calm that came from a life of service as a Navy SEAL. Out of nowhere, the roar of motorcycles shattered the tranquility. A group of bikers, loud and brash, rolled up, their sneering laughter echoing through the stillness. They spotted the lone figure by the water, an easy target, or so they thought. What followed was an encounter they would never forget, as the man they underestimated revealed a strength and resolve they couldn't begin to comprehend. But how far would things go? Stay tuned. The bikers parked their loud machines just a few feet from the fisherman, their engines rumbling as if to assert dominance. Their leader, a burly man with a leather vest full of patches, smirked as he stepped forward. "Nice evening for fishing, old-timer," he said, his tone dripping with mockery. The fisherman didn't flinch, barely glancing up as he adjusted the line on his rod. "Just here for some peace and quiet," he replied calmly, his voice steady and unbothered. The group didn't seem to take the hint. They laughed among themselves, cracking jokes and deliberately stepping closer to his gear. One even kicked over his bait bucket, scattering its contents. Still, the fisherman remained composed, his expression giving away nothing. But behind his calm demeanor, a quiet calculation was taking place. They didn't know who they were dealing with, or what he was capable of. Tension hung thick in the air. The leader of the bikers leaned in closer, his shadow falling over the fisherman. "What's the matter?" "Cat got your tongue," he sneered, trying to provoke a reaction. The fisherman slowly placed his rod down, his movements deliberate, almost rehearsed. He looked up at the group, his calm eyes meeting the leader's with a piercing intensity that made the man pause for a brief second. But the leader quickly shook it off, laughing, as if to cover his moment of unease. The others joined in, their confidence growing as they began circling the fisherman. One grabbed his fishing rod, pretending to cast it, while another started rifling through his tackle box. They mocked him, their voices dripping with entitlement. To them, he was just an easy target, someone to toy with for their own amusement. What they didn't realize was that every action, every word, was being quietly assessed. The fisherman had seen situations like this before, men testing boundaries, underestimating their opponent. He remained still, letting them think they had the upper hand. But inside, the instincts honed through years of elite training were on high alert. He wasn't just waiting, he was planning. The bikers were about to learn a hard lesson, though they didn't know it yet. The tension around the lakeside was growing thicker with every passing second. The bikers were no longer just mocking. They were starting to push boundaries. One of them grabbed the fisherman's chair and tossed it aside, while another gave a hard shove to the tackle box, scattering hooks and tools across the ground. The leader chuckled darkly, clearly enjoying the show. Still, the fisherman didn't rise to their bait. Instead, he carefully stood up, brushing the dirt from his hands. His movements were slow and deliberate, almost too calm for the escalating situation. The leader stepped closer, invading his space. "What's the matter?" "Not gonna fight back," he taunted, his smirk widening. The fisherman looked up at him, a faint but telling smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. It wasn't anger or fear. It was something else entirely. For the first time, the leader hesitated, sensing a shift he couldn't quite place.